Look at you. You've watched the 10 signs she likes your videos. You've read the threads. You've spent late nights staring at the delivered status that never turns into typing. You think it's your height, you think it's your jawline, you think it's your bank account. You're wrong. You're failing because you're a peasant trying to play a game meant for kings, using a map drawn by people who want you to lose. You aren't just unlocked, you're biologically and psychologically repulsive because of the patterns you refuse to break. Today, we strip away the ego. We are tier listing the reasons for your romantic bankruptcy. This isn't a glow up guide, this is an autopsy of your failure. Welcome to the hierarchy of inadequacy. D tier, the clinging vine. D tier is the foundation of the incel psyche, the clinging vine. This is the man who treats every hello from a woman like a life raft in the middle of the Pacific. You respond to texts in 3 seconds. You agree with every opinion she has. You're so available that you have the market value of oxygen. Plentiful, necessary for survival, but ultimately ignored until it's gone. You believe that by being supportive and always there, you're building a bridge. In reality, you're building a cage, and she can smell the desperation on your skin like a rotting pheromone. You're a walking violation of Law 11. Learn, keep people dependent on you. The law dictates that you should make her need you for her happiness. Instead, you've inverted it. You've made your entire emotional stability dependent on her validation. By being a yes man, you've signaled that you have no internal compass, no mission, and no options. A woman doesn't want a shadow, she wants a sun to revolve around. You aren't even a moon, you're just a speck of dust caught in her orbit, begging for a glance. The psychology here is simple. Scarcity creates value. By being hyper available, you have signaled that your time is worthless. If your time is worthless, you are worthless. You think you're being nice. She thinks you're a parasite waiting for a host. You have no mystery, no edge, and no life outside her potential approval. You're the man who gets ghosted, not because she's mean, but because you're emotionally suffocated. You're the D-tier beginner because your failure is the most obvious and the easiest to mock. C-tier, the mirror of weakness. C-tier is for the man who has managed to hide his desperation but cannot hide his self-loath, the mirror of weakness. You walk into a room and your body language is a public confession. Your shoulders are rounded, your eyes seek the floor, and you apologize for taking up space. You believe that if you act humble enough, someone will take pity on you and grant you affection. You have mistaken submission for a virtue. You are not a good man, you're a weak man who lacks the courage to be dangerous. You are failing Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. A king does not ask for permission to exist. He assumes his place. Because you do not respect yourself, you project an aura of low status, triggers a biological avoid response in women. Hypergamy is a filter. It is designed to weed out the weak men to ensure the survival of the strong. By presenting yourself as a victim of circumstance or a sad boy, you're essentially waving a white flag to the entire female population. You're telling them, I am not a protector, I am a liability. Psychologically, people treat you the way you teach them to treat. If you treat yourself like a secondary character in your own life, she will treat you like an extra. You've convinced yourself that being enough is enough, but yourself is currently a pile of insecurities wrapped in a cheap hoodie. Until you learn to command the space you occupy, you will remain in C tier. The man who is nice to have around, but never the man she dreams of. You are the background noise of his social life. B tier, the transparent man. B tier is where the oversharers live. The transparent man. You think vulnerability is the key to her heart because some talk show host told you so. So on the second date, you tell her about your childhood trauma, your insecurities, about your career, and your 5-year plan. You've laid out all the cards on the table by the first appetizer. You think you're building connection, you're actually killing the only thing that sustains attraction, curiosity. And once a woman knows everything about you, she has conquered you. And once she has conquered you, she is bored. You are in direct violation of Law 4. Always say less than necessary. By talking too much, you appear ordinary and out of power. Power and attraction reside in the unspoken, the implied, and the hidden. When you reveal your inner workings, you lose your aura. You become predictable. Predictability is the graveyard of desire. Women attracted to the dark room they haven't explored yet. You've turned on all of the lights, pointed out the dusty corners, and wonder why she's looking for the egg. You've traded your power for a moment of being understood. Understand this. Silence is a tool of intimidation and fascination. The man who says little is perceived as deeper, more powerful, and more dangerous than he actually is. By spilling your soul, you've proven you have no self-control. You're in B tier because you have the components of a man, but you have no filter. You're a book with the ending written on the front cover. No one wants to read the story they already know the ending to. You aren't a mystery to be solved. You're a brochure to be skimmed and tossed. A tier, the moral crusader. A tier is the most toxic and the most intellectual failure, the moral crusader. You spend your time complaining about modern women, states of dating, and the decay of traditional values. You think you're a philosopher. You're actually just a loser who found a sophisticated way to cope with rejection. You've built a fortress of resentment and you call it logic. You judge the game because you are incapable of playing it. You want the world to change its biology to accommodate your laziness. It won't. And of course, I'm not saying that there aren't any problems in the modern world. Of course there are. But just complaining about them is not going to change anything. You have failed to master Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. You're so busy being right about how unfair the world is that you have forgotten to be effective. If you shout at the rain, you still get wet. The moral crusader refuses to adapt to the reality of human nature, clinging to an idealized version of the past that never existed. You think your high standards are why you're alone. No, your arrogance and bitterness are why you're alone. You've become a black hole of negative energy, and everyone, men and women alike, can feel the gravity of your misery. This is the psychology of sour grapes. Because you cannot reach the fruit, you claim it is rot. But everyone sees you looking up at the vine with tears in your eyes. By positioning yourself as above the dating world, you have isolated yourself in a prison of your own make. A-tier failures are dangerous because they are smart enough to justify their own loneliness. They would rather be right and alone than wrong and happy. You're the king of a graveyard, ruling over nothing but your own ego. S-tier, the safety addict. S-tier is the ultimate tragedy, the safety addict. You have the looks, you have the money, you might even have the personality, but you have zero kills because you never pull the trigger. You're the man who waits for the perfect moment. You wait for a clear signal. You wait until you're 100% sure she won't say no. Guess what? That moment doesn't exist. You're addicted to the safety of the friend zone or the comfort of your own room, because in those places your ego is safe. You haven't been rejected because you haven't lived. You are the antithesis of Law 28. Interaction with boldness. The law states that hesitation puts obstacles in your path. Boldness eliminates them. Any mistakes you make through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. But you're paralyzed by the what if. You would rather stay in a state of potential than face the reality of a no. You're a spectator in the arena of life, watching men with half your talent walk away with the women you desire, simply because they had the stones to ask. Psychologically, your fear of rejection is actually a fear of discovering you aren't as great as you tell yourself you are. As long as you don't try, you can pretend you're a sleeping giant. Once you try and fail, you're just a man. S tier is the most pathetic tier because it is a self-imposed exile. You're starving at a banquet because you're afraid of using the wrong fork. You are the man who will wake up at 40 and realize your safety was actually a slow-motion suicide of the soul. S plus tier, the ego martyr. And finally, the S plus tier, the god tier of failure, the ego martyr. This is the man who says, I shouldn't have to change. If she doesn't like me for who I am, she's not the one. This is the ultimate cope. It is the peak of human arrogance. You're essentially saying that the version of you that currently fails is the final version, and the world is wrong for not rewarding it. You have turned your stagnation into a religion. You aren't authentic, you are just rigid. And in nature, that which is rigid breaks. You have ignored the most vital law of all, Law 48. Assume formlessness. By remaining yourself, a self that's clearly not working, you have made yourself a static target for failure. Power requires the ability to adapt, to wear masks, to play the role the situation demands. The ego martyr thinks masks are fake. He doesn't realize that the self is just a collection of habits. By refusing to evolve, you are committing a slow-motion social execution. You are choosing your ego over evolution. This is the final boss of why you can't get girls. You have fallen in love with your own struggle. You find a sense of pride in your integrity, when in reality, your integrity is just a lack of imagination. You're the man who dies alone because he refused to learn how to dance, claiming that dancing is beneath you. The truth? You're just afraid you look stupid. And so, you remain a statue, cold, hard, and utterly alone in a world that is moving past you. You're the architect of your own extinction. You see yourself in one of them, don't you? You feel the heat in your chest. That's not anger. That's the truth burning through the lies you've told yourself to sleep at night. You're currently a collection of failures, a tier list of inadequacies. But here is the secret the nice guys won't tell you. Recognition is the first step to demolition. You can stay in your tier, you can keep your authenticity and your more high ground and your safety, and you can watch as the men who are willing to play the game, the men who understand the laws of power, take everything you think you deserve. Or you can decide that the current version of you needs to die, so a better one can be born. This channel is a forge, and I am the hammer. If you want to stop being a spectator and start being a player, your training starts now. Subscribe, drop a "the old me is dead" in the comment. Let the weak weed themselves out. We have a